Hi guys, it's April, and I want to talk about book covers. From what I have seen on YouTube and pretty much the rest of the internet and life in general, there's this weird relationship with readers and book covers. We either feel really guilty because we pick up books because of their cover, or we overjudge a book because it does have a beautiful cover and we think it should all be about the inside. Book covers are marketing, plain and simple. They are there to tell you what is inside this book. Whether or not they are telling the truth is a completely different issue. So don't feel guilty about picking up a book because of the cover, but don't stop at the cover. Early on in the bookmaking process, I had a very limited set of books. So having a cover with just the title of the manuscript or the book or the story was perfectly fine because you've only had a select set of books to choose from. The printing press came around, right? And then all of a sudden books were an everyday item. But it wasn't quite there yet. Things like this, with just the title, Grimm's Fairy Tales, this was okay. We had a limited number of written things and choosing word of mouth because there was only that. But then we started to get more and more books. You had to get really descriptive in the titles. The story of King Arthur and his knights. We know what this is about. It's plain and simple. You could have never labeled this knights. Nobody would have known what it was. Then marketing and advertising started to come into play. Technology moved to a place where we could just start adding color, we could start adding pictures, we could start adding concepts to different kinds of material. And we went crazy with it. This is actually relatively new, guys. This isn't something that's... you can go back and you can go all the way up to now and you can see how that whole process changed. And in that process, the book cover changed as well. Because like I said, book covers became marketing. The cover became the first impression that people saw. It needed to say something about the book inside if they wanted people to pick it up. The market was saturated, word of mouth wasn't reliable. We didn't have this thing called the internet to let us know if a book was good or not. So we had to judge it by its cover. And to get an idea of how this kind of all works, think about the cereal aisle. You go down the cereal aisle and then there's boxes and boxes and some bags of cereal. They're all kinds of colors, they're all kinds of shapes, they're screaming all kinds of different things, but they really don't tell you how it tastes. They can use words to tell you certain things about the product inside, but the box itself is not the cereal. If it's a fun cereal, say a kid's cereal, it's bright, it's colorful, it's active, it's noisy. If it's an adult cereal, if it's there for your health, if it wants you to feel good about yourself, it's more muted, it's sophisticated, so to say. And that can also be seen in the placement of where those boxes are. So I want you to stand in the cereal aisle. I want you to look at the bottom. What do you notice about the bottom? I want you to look at the top. What do you notice about the top of the shelves? Well, you will start to notice that along the bottom, at eye level of most little people, is all of the kids' brands of cereal. They want all of those right at their level because they're marketing to them. And then all the adult cereals slowly get higher and higher up because that is where your sight line is. This is completely the same concept of a book. You have a market, you want to market to them, you know these are your types of readers, so you put out things, images, pictures, ideas to them. The outside content also gives you a little bit of the perceived value of that article, that item, that product. It tells someone how much that company, that author, really cares about their work. If it's in a box and it's got a sturdy material, you know that they care about that cereal. That is a higher value or a higher perceived value than a cereal in a bag that just flops around everywhere. But in reality, those two things could taste completely the same. They could have the same ideas. Let me show you an example. This is actually by the same author, the artist. You have this beautiful book by Brooke Shaden. It's this huge size. It's got this beautiful cover. It's nice and soft. It feels good. It's got this embossed lettering. And then inside you've got, you know, the beautiful images. This book is saying, I am of quality. I have content inside that is of quality. But by the same artist, the same author, you have this book. I mean, you guys can't feel this, but I mean, this is kind of like all over the place. I mean, and the typography itself isn't nearly to the same quality as that, and you almost don't realize that it's the same thing. You mean, you got the same crazy pictures, you've got the same crazy words, you've got the same ideas inside, but given an option, which one would you want to pick up? That is perceived value. That is marketing. That is what book covers do. I'm not negating the concept of word of mouth. I think that should be the highest point of decision, is what other people and how other people are reacting to it, not just how a book looks. But you can't always rely on that. There are so many books in the world that sometimes seeing a book, gushing over what it looks like, and then picking up and reading it is perfectly fine. Even though the cover gives you perceived value, it also starts to tell you a little bit about what is inside without having to read the words yet. So you've got this idea of how colors can invoke certain kinds of moods or feelings or ideas or thoughts. And sometimes this depends on the culture that you are in or the culture that this book is about. See, we've got red. Red, in this case, it invokes danger, it invokes passion. It is something that you kind of makes you stand back a little bit and like, wait a minute. Same case with this one. You know, something not good is probably going to happen in this book because there's just so much red, and red is like, oh, make me stop, you know? But in the same instance, red can be about royalty, it can be by prosperity, and it can even be about marriage. I mean, it all depends on context of the culture, which is weird. So when you're looking at books, kind of think about that as well. I mean, what is this color trying to say to me? I mean, you think about blue. Blue could be a soft color. It could be a very relaxing color. It can be an inviting color, but it can also be a very depressing color. It can invoke sadness. It can invoke all of those like negative feelings. Book covers say a lot about what is inside a book, as long as whoever is designing these books are being honest. Their biases in sales and marketing. I understand why it's done, because you're going for either feminine or masculine market, and those colors and those shapes and those everything, they pull in and they start to. But at the same time, you kind of want this division of, hey, we're not siloed like that. We aren't all feminine, we aren't all masculine. We like both. This right here, right away, you can tell this is by a woman author and she's writing to women. Here, this is very masculine. And you know this is going to be a very male voice. And whether or not that turns you off, I don't know. I unfortunately sometimes have to think about this. I have to think about the audience and, okay, so we want something, you know, solid. We want something that feels structured, and unfortunately that's a very masculine thought. Or we want something that is like inviting, we want something warm, we want something emotional, and that is associated with women. I hope in the future that we get to a point where that isn't the case, and maybe this is a completely different tangent to completely get on, but right now, where we all sit, until something drastic happens, things are going to be masculine or feminine. And that isn't to say pink and blue have anything to do with it, because it doesn't. That is actually a recent occurrence. For the longest time, it was the opposite way. And then some marketing somewhere completely changed the concept of pink and blue. So it can change. That is the good news. Things can change, and they don't always have to feel masculine or feminine. Someday they just might feel there. And I'm okay with that. I want to get to that point. With all that in mind, yes, start out judging a book by its cover. Honestly, that is fine. I love that. I love looking at a cover and being like, okay, this book feels like something that would invite me in. But then I read it. You can't stop at the cover. That will get you into so many holes. And sometimes, and it breaks my little heart, authors and publishers don't put that much into the cover or into the feel, into the perceived value of a book. And I think that needs to happen. I mean, most readers want something that feels valuable to display on their bookshelves. And that is a selling point for people. So don't forget about the cover, but don't put all stock in the cover. Let me give you an example. Look at this book. What do you think this book is about? Well, it's about a guy. Looks like post-apocalyptic. Right? Interesting. Maybe. And then this book. Unicorns. Very illustrated. Very fantastical. Did those two books have anything in common? What if I told you they're both about unicorns? Would you believe me? Probably not. You would have to actually read the synopsis to understand that, yes, they are both about unicorns. Right away in the last unicorn, the title, the picture, the everything tells you, yes, this is about unicorns. But Ariel? No, this just looks like, you know, that standard apocalyptic story about a guy trying to survive. But guys, there is a unicorn in this book. So yes, judge it by its cover, but keep going. So don't feel bad about any of your mental chemical things that happen because of book covers. It's natural. We're visual people. It's marketing. It's sales. Let that sales drive you a little bit, but don't let it completely make your decision. And in wrap up, I'm going to show you a few of my favorite covers of books that I have sitting on my bookshelf. And I'm sure from these covers you can tell a little bit about me. The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. I simply love this cover. I haven't read it yet, but it's just so dark and eerie, and the way everything just like bleeds off and together. I love this. This is a work of art. And then we got Wither for the same reason. I am biased towards certain kinds of covers. You can tell just by the first two books I showed you. So I need to check myself. Yes, I can be drawn to the dark, the eerie, the creepy covers, but I can't limit myself to this. And then finally, we've got Summer and Bird. There's something just whimsical about this book. I love the whimsical thoughts. I love things that are like intricate but not overwhelming. So yes, there is some thoughts that I've had about book covers that I wanted to let you guys ponder and think about. I'm sure I've invoked some really interesting thoughts from all of you guys, and I would completely love to hear them. So tell me down below, and maybe we can start a conversation about book covers. Guys, I'm a graphic designer. I love looking at art. I love looking at covers. I love looking at ads and sales and marketing. Let's do this. I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.